Hey everybody, Davey here from Davey's World Fishing. Today I'm going to talk about my chosen topwater setup for yellowtail and calico bass. Alright guys, it's April 1st, it's Southern California, it's a beautiful day except for the clouds today, and we're coming into springtime, which means it's about time to start the topwater fishing. Topwater fishing for us is yellowtail, calico bass, even some tuna when it's starting to come around, but in this April time frame, we're starting to look at yellowtail and calico bass. My go-to setup, I personally fish the Okuma PCH. This is the 8-foot heavy rod. It's a 20 to 40 pound setup, and I get that set up with the Komodo SS. That's the 350 size. That Komodo, I've got it spooled up with 50 pound soft steel eminent braid, and then I've got 40 pound soft steel fluoro stretch top shot. I personally like to fish my topwater and my iron setups with braid. A lot of people like to fish straight monofilament or straight fluorocarbon. I like the braid, and then I'll change out my top shots depending on how big my fish are, what I'm doing. If I'm in kelp, I'm going to go heavier. If I'm in some big, nice home guard yellowtail, I'm going to go with that heavier fluorocarbon as well. The fluorocarbon I use is that fluoro stretch by Soft Steel, as I mentioned. What I like about that is it actually has some stretch to it. It's 100% fluorocarbon line, but you actually do get some stretch. A lot of times when you're grinding in and those fish hit, you're going to get a lot of pulled hooks because there's zero stretch to regular fluorocarbon line. That stretch, it actually absorbs a lot of that shock, and you're going to get a lot more hook sets with it. As far as the length of my leader, I generally have about 2 rod lengths right to the spool all the way down to my jig. So in this case, you're looking at about 14 to 15 feet total of top shot. You can go longer if you want. I know the stretch fluorocarbon actually comes in a 25-yard spool, so a lot of guys will use that. That's 75 feet of top shot. That'll work out fine for you as well. That's my go-to. The jig I have here, this happens to be the One Cool Tuna. That's the 4 size there. That's just under 6 inch. You're at about 2.8 ounces. And then the larger size is the OCT 10. That's a little over 6 inches, and you're about 3.5 ounces or so. For fishing yellowtail, the colors I always like the greens. So the mint greens, the light greens, something with a nice green to it. Working those edges of those kelps, or if we're at Catalina, finding that 90-foot type of zone and just kind of working that with that topwater. Looking for bait, of course, looking for signs of birds and everything else. But that's my go-to setup. That's that PCH, that's the Okuma PCH Custom. That happens to be the inshore series. That's the 8-foot heavy rod, the 20 to 40. That's matched up with the Komodo SS 350. 25 to 30 pounds of drag out of your Komodos, 50 pound braid, and then I've got a 25 to 40 pound top shot. I happen to have 40 on here when I'm chasing these bigger yellowtail around. Great little setup. Hope you guys do the same thing when you're out there chasing these big yellowtail. Make sure you have the right setup. You want some backbone, but you want to be able to have some whipping power to really get those jigs out there. I'll use the exact same setup when I'm fishing calico bass, whether I'm fishing iron or if I'm fishing some of the bigger heavy plastics in the kelp. I'll get that out there, I'll pothole it down, I'll let it work its way down there, and that's why I like having that braid and that shorter leader, is if I do get into that kelp, I can actually saw right through that kelp and get those fish out. Sometimes you're gonna get those larger white sea bass that come through, and those big yellowtail, a lot of times they'll bury their nose in there as well. You wanna be able to turn them and get them out there. That's my go-to setup. I appreciate y'all checking in. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below and subscribe to Davey's World Fishing up here in that right-hand corner, and we'll see you out on the water.